Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 28th June 2017. The first article, Counting the Strides. This is related to the women empowerment in Pakistan. But the issues which are being discussed are very much important even for India. An empowerment involves a political dimension, economic dimension, and social dimension. So, on the political front, inclusion of the women is very critical. If you take Indian context, 73rd, 74th Amendment Act and Women Reservation Bill, they can provide for political inclusion of the women. And one more positive thing is, SHG movement is also able to create a positive political capital in rural India among the women. And coming to economic front, if you talk about self-help group movement, it's a movement towards economic independence of women. Economic independence is critical for empowerment of the women as it provides them the necessary choice and voice and ability to make decisions on their own life. And coming to social spaces, here access to the public space, changing the very attitude at the family level, this is very critical. So if you talk about patriarchy, now it is manifestation of domestic violence, child marriages, all these are flowing from the patriarchal attitude. So providing them greater access to public spaces needs mobility. So providing for mobility, safety, all these are critical in improving the social empowerment of the women. So in these circumstances, a Pakistani government is taking certain slew of measures to beat the patriarchy. But the biggest challenge over this is the institutions of the state still hold prejudice against women. If you take armed forces, they have their own prejudices to promote the women into officers' ranks. And if you take police, or certain occupations are being reserved for women where the caring is involved. And where the work is rough, or where the work is supposed to be involved with strong muscle, the women are not being allowed. So in this context, occupational structure and occupational division between men and women also need to change. And the state institutions shall begin or shall hold this particular change from themselves, shall start from themselves. That is what is the point which I want to drive you. And coming to another aspect which he touched is this. What is the driving force in Pakistan for this entire change? It is the neoliberal movement and also opportunities which are generated in the market through neoliberal market agenda. So, liberalism is not happening in the society through a wave of understanding of equal status of the women. It is the economic opportunities and the need for more workforce is bringing in this modernization. So that's the reason why, as the intentions are different, whatever the change occurring in the society cannot be complete. So under capitalistic guise, this change at best can be partial. That is this article talks about. And the next is pieces of complex solution. You know that the bank NPAs are increasing. Insolvency and bankruptcy code today is seen as a way out to fight this banking crisis. Most of the sectors which are involved in this insolvency process, which are being declared by the RBI, the 12 companies which are identified by the RBI, they belong to steel and power industry. So what is the way out? To what extent insolvency and bankruptcy code will be successful? Now the first thing is, if the bankers are flexible to an extent, IBC can be successful. But however, bankers are afraid to be flexible because if they offer for any haircuts or if they offer for any, accept for any losses or closes the balance sheet at a less number, then obviously tomorrow CBI, CVC, CAG can point out that. And section 13(1)(d) of Prevention of Corruption Act, it provides an opportunity for this. So the presumption of the guilt, fear of these three C's, that is CVC, CBI and CAG, it is making the public sector banks to make these, keeping them away from making these decisions. And next most important person is insolvency professional. He need to be identified and appointed by National Company Law Tribunal. The capacities of National Company Law Tribunal are not adequate to handle the process such as insolvency. And added to that, insolvency professional shall be capable and at the same time independent. So in India, promoters still hold strong management control over the business. So insolvency professional, if he tries to be independent from promoters, obviously they can disrupt the existing management practices. So if you see the West, the banks, they can take over the entire control of the management of a particular company which is going through this insolvency process. But such an environment is not yet established in case of India. And finally, insolvency and bankruptcy process, it needs a cooperation from the promoters. So if all these things are in place, IBC can be a solution to our double balance sheet syndrome. The double balance sheet syndrome refers to an deficit on both the front of lender and also debtor. So this double balance sheet syndrome has to be addressed. Our twin balance sheet syndrome has to be addressed. IBC can be a way out if all these mistakes are being rectified. Warm in Washington. This article is about Prime Minister Modi's visit to United States of America. So what is the ground? Let us see something which has happened before this visit. President Trump, from time to time, he has accused India of gaining benefits from the global community in the name of climate change. Added to that, it also blamed India for its protectionist measures and lack of protection for the intellectual property rights. And on the other hand, the trade barriers are also being criticized. So in this context, India also had its set of concerns, especially related to immigration, H-1B visas, strategic convergence. India had its own doubts with Mr. Trump. So this meeting has started on a very positive note. India's concerns related to trade such as H-1B, immigration, these are not been addressed. But however, on economic front, America's concerns are being very much put in place, especially related to trade deficit of United States, protectionist measures in India, and also free trade. All these matters have been put across the table, but however, India's concerns are not yet been raised. And second thing, with regard to strategic interests, the document, joint statement, it talks about strategic convergence between both the countries. What is this strategic convergence is about? So, with regard to Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, these countries are able to talk to each other. And second thing is, on South China Sea, India and United States made a strong pitch during the Obama's visit to India, but the same thing did not happen during Modi's visit to United States of America. And the strategic convergence with regard to Afghanistan is very much discussed over here. The new areas of cooperation which are growing other than defense are related to energy. India is expected to receive natural gas from United States of America very soon. So it is going to major determinator for the business or trade between both the countries. So though we have expected little from this meeting, a substantial was derived. And India also has got these predatory drones from the United States of America. So the defense trade also has a point to bag on. So one way, India is trying to gain on the strategic front, and at the same time it is also losing on the economic front. That's what the experts can conclude from this meeting. Now the Marawi siege, it is about Philippines. ISIS has also entered into Southeast Asia, and it is a sign of caution for India. And the neighboring countries, Malaysia, Singapore, these are also receiving repeated threats from Islamic State elements. More than that, this article is not important for me. Now let's go to presidential election is a political contest. So let's keep the presidential election aside. Let us understand something about communism over here. He made important point. The communists are not interested to recognize that the caste in India is equivalent to class in the other countries. You know that what Marx has said is, a complete spontaneous revolution is possible in a fully developed capitalistic society where the exploitation will be maximum. So, what Mr. Yechuri says is this: India, capitalism did not mature enough for a leftist revolution to take place. And second is, there is no environment for the revolution for the reason is the neoliberal agenda has depoliticized the youth who shall be the frontliners for the revolution to happen. At the same time, it has made them to move towards individual careerism. And second point he makes is caste is supposed to come close to class in India. So it means, as of now, we have a caste oppression, but the class divisions in India, working class and capitalistic class, are still forming. So that's why the social oppression and economic deprivation need to be addressed together if any change has to occur in Indian society. That is what Sitaram Yechuri's points are. Coming to the presidential election, other than Neelam Sanjeev Reddy's election, every election in India was contested. So, it shall be seen as a contest between the ideologies when presidential election to be considered. That is what this article is about. A meek reform. You know that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, he has provided for Vision 2030. He wants to transform the economy of Saudi Arabia and wants to make it less dependent on oil. But however, if we see, oil economy is the major grease, especially for the Saudis who are working in the public sector. But however, the private sector is the most efficient. If market reforms have to come up, competition in private sector reforms are also very critical. Obviously, it can make many of the Saudis jobless. So, focusing on the skill development and improving the abilities of the Saudis is critical for this reform. To what extent he can take it forward is a major question over here. Now, let's go to the front page. India-US joint statement. What it has focused on, it wants the Pakistan not to export terrorism or give space for the terrorists on its soil. And second, with regard to the China's One Belt One Road initiative, it has been clearly stated that it shall not infringe into the sovereignty concerns of India. It means the India has stated from time to time that Gilgit-Baltistan, POK are parts of India, and China-Pakistan economic corridor running through this has sovereignty issues for it. And the third point is the energy sector. We are going to get LNG from United States of America, and the South China Sea issue was not much discussed. On defense cooperation, Guardian prawns are going to be given to India. And finally, the issues which are concerns of Mr. Trump related to economic protectionism and also trade barriers, intellectual property rights protection are being well discussed in the joint statement. But India's concerns related to H1B and immigration, and they did not find a place in this particular joint statement. Now, China protests against incursions. So here, it is repeatedly China is stating that India has crossed the border. So many a times China also did the same. It is due to inability to determine the border even after these many years of negotiation. So lack of properly determined border is making these troops to cross the borders now and then, which is leading to diplomatic tensions. And China, in reaction to this time, stopped the pilgrims going to Manas Sarovar Yatra. And then EU slaps record 2.4 billion euro fine on in Google. So this is antitrust laws. So it means monopolistic practices shall not be allowed in the European Union as per the antitrust law. As Google is said to be breached this, a penalty of 2.4 billion is being imposed on that. And then let's go to the news page. A fight of ideologies, says Meera Kumar. So it shall not be considered as a Dalit versus Dalit fight. It shall be seen as a broader contest between the ideologies that stands for unity, equality. On the other hand, the other ideology which stands towards dividing the people and also promoting Hindu Rashtra. That's what Ms. Meera Kumar wants to say over here. So remember, The president's office is the most important office in India. So a well-capable man, well-read man, well-experienced man, these are supposed to be the considerations that has to guide us to field a candidate. That's what Miss Meera explains. And then let's go to Beijing trying to assert itself. So, because the breach of China along the line of Sikkim is clearly visible these days. Once Dalai Lama has visited this Arunachal Pradesh, since then these incursions of China have increased. So, this shows that the China has become more assertive now. And then coming to Prime Minister's visit to United States of America, Ivanka Trump is also in the news because Entrepreneurial Council, Mr. Modi has invited her to head this when it happens in India. In that way, Prime Minister Modi was also able to personalize his visit to the power center in the White House, that is the president's family. And then Netherlands backs India's entry into United Nations Security Council and the Nuclear Suppliers Group. And while Prime Minister is visiting United States, this NSG issue did not crop up at all. And then let's go to the world page. So Miss Nikki Haley states that another chemical attack is possible in Syria by the Assad forces. So this is a crisis in Syrian society. The next important thing is FARC rebels and Colombia government has agreed for disarmament. And you know that Mr. Santos, the president of Colombia, he has won the Nobel Prizes for the ceasefire agreement and also peace between both the parties, the Colombian forces, revolutionary forces of the Colombia and the government. And then, in the page I gave you the notes. Please go through this. I want you to understand how to write an answer based on this particular notes. lawx.in/civils-prep. This is the page where these notes will be available to you. And then all the Law Excellence courses, lawx.in are available on lawx.in/testprep. So you have Anthropology Classroom Program, Medical Sciences Test Series, General Studies Mentorship Program, Skill Development Program, Public Administration courses, and also a test series, essay test series. All these are available on the lawx.in/testprep. Thank you very much and all the best.